is Wonder Man, and why does Marvel think the world needs a show about him right now? Simon Williams isn't a name most people toss around at dinner tables, but he's exactly the kind of messy, surprising character that makes great television. He starts as an heir with money and bad choices, gets weaponized by villains, dies heroically, and comes back remade as living ionic energy. That's a lot of life to cram into one series. Corporate scandal, betrayal, literal resurrection, and a Hollywood reinvention that feels almost too on the nose for today's franchise-obsessed culture. What makes the story addictive is its contradictions. He's powerful enough to withstand blows from gods, yet fragile in ways a punch can't fix. He can fly and fire energy at enemies, but he can't undo the shame of his past. The MCU's take promises something more than another origin flick. It looks poised to explore fame, identity, and what happens when someone who should have a place in the world finds that place empty. So this is the question at the heart of the show. Can a man remade by energy regain his humanity, or will immortality cost him everything that made him human to begin with? Stay with me, because the next part explains exactly how he got there.
You hear about Wonder Man? I need to be in this movie.
Sorry, you crazy.
I was born to play this character.
Oh, you serious? Boo, they are already talking to Leo.
Origin Simon Williams' beginning reads like a tale of soft privilege that curdled into desperation. He inherited Williams Innovations, a company with prestige and legacy, and inherited the assumption that status equals competence.
Zemo, Stark destroyed my life.
Tony Stark has found a way to hold your energy for...
When the business faltered, Simon chose a reckless shortcut, embezzlement to hide losses and buy time. That decision turned a private financial problem into a headline scandal and left him exposed, humiliated, and vulnerable in ways money could not fix. The comics treat him as a man who made a catastrophic human mistake rather than a cartoon villain, which makes his fall sympathetic and believable. That vulnerability becomes the hinge of his arc. It explains why he accepted help he shouldn't have and why his loyalties could be bent. The lesson that follows is classic but ugly. Rescue offered by cunning people rarely comes without strings. Understanding this origin lets us see his later choices as survival and confusion, not simply arrogance. And once Simon is in the hands of those with a plan, the story moves from corporate drama to something far more dangerous. Zemo's setup, when help arrived for Simon, it arrived from manipulators with surgical intent. Baron Zemo, the Enchantress, and the Executioner presented themselves as saviors with a tidy solution: give him power and the revenge he wanted. Their tool was ionic radiation, a comic book tech that granted raw physical dominance, massive strength, near-impervious durability, and reflexes that made him a battlefield force. But Zemo's genius was not purely scientific, it was strategic cruelty. He overloaded Simon with so much ionic energy that survival itself required an antidote controlled by the villains. In effect, they made him powerful and then put his life on credit with them as the collector. That dynamic turned Wonder Man into a puppet. At first, a man whose gratitude, fear, and instinct to repay debt meant he followed orders. The moral dilemma planted here becomes the engine of early stories. How much agency can a person reclaim once power has been weaponized against them? The origin is a dark mirror of help, a gift that is also a chain. Betrayal, sacrifice, and the first death. The plan was betrayal, but the outcome was conscience. Simon infiltrated the Avengers with instructions to sabotage them, but the team's response surprised him. Respect, comradeship, and an offer of genuine belonging. Human connection cracked the mask that Zemo and his allies had manufactured. Faced with a choice between completing the mission and answering to his better instincts, Simon chose the harder path. He betrayed his manipulators and fought beside the Avengers. The cost was immediate and mythic. Ionic instability ravaged his body in the ensuing battle, and he collapsed into a state the world read as death. But comics love complicating endings. His death became stasis, a pause that later allowed for resurrection and profound change. That sacrificial moment rewired how the world saw him, not as a mere pawn, but as someone capable of selflessness. It also set up the darker question that follows his return. When a man dies and comes back different at the molecular level, what remains of his original self? Power's evolved resurrection didn't just restore Simon Williams, it remade him. The ionic energy that had once supercharged his muscles stabilized and began to alter his biology biology at a fundamental level. Where he had been a powerful human before, he became closer to living energy. Flight without mechanical aid, the ability to project concussive ionic blasts, astonishing regenerative healing, and, eventually, the capacity to disperse and reassemble his form at will. Comics pushed the concept further, shifting, near-agelessness, and the ability to interfere with electromagnetic systems became part of his toolkit in different arcs. Those powers read like good utilities on paper, but the narrative consequences matter more than the spectacle. The more he became ionic, the less tethered he felt to ordinary human rhythms. Food, sleep, and aging became optional, and time itself became a strange mirror. Regeneration padded his body against physical end, but it isolated him emotionally. Friends moved on while he did not. In short, the power solved battle problems and magnified existential ones, turning superhuman abilities into the ingredients of an identity crisis. Hollywood reinvention, rather than remain a public puzzle or a sidekick, Simon intentionally reinvented himself on the West Coast. Choosing to work as a stuntman and actor was both pragmatic and deeply symbolic. It was an attempt to earn respect on his own terms, rather than through a corporate title or a crisis-driven origin. Hollywood, in the comics, functions as a testing ground where identity can be written and rewritten, and where performance becomes an exercise in control. For Simon, that career lent practical benefits: income, anonymity, and a new skill set and psychological ones, the chance to be judged for craft rather than scandal. This reinvention also turns him into a meta-figure within the MCU's media landscape, a character who understands performance, PR, and the power of image. That gives the Disney Plus show rich material, audition scenes that force authenticity, on-set moments that mimic battlefield dynamics, and interviews that reveal scars. The West Coast life is refuge, therapy, and experiment, a place where reinvention can either heal him or hollow him out further. Psychological cost and MCU payoffs. If you strip away power stats and punch counts, Wonder Man's most compelling dimension is emotional cost. Resurrection granted him strength, but left him stranded in time. People aged, teams reorganized, and cultural moments passed without him. The comics lean into that loneliness, treating immortality as a form of exile where regeneration can't repair a fractured past. That emotional residue, guilt over past mistakes, shame about being manipulated, and the ache of watching the world move on is dramatic gold for television. It reframes action beats as scenes of reconciliation and identity work. And from a franchise perspective, a season that earns empathy for Simon makes him invaluable. A character who understands celebrity, narrative control, and sacrifice can be both a connective tissue and a wild card for future films. Whether the show ends with him reclaimed by the Avengers, leading a West Coast team, or forging a new life as an actor, the payoff will be richest if his choices feel earned. Ultimately, the question the series must answer is simple but sharp: can a man remade by energy find a human place to belong? Which version of Simon do you want the MCU to prioritize? The cosmic powerhouse, the wounded star, or a scary, brilliant mix of both? Want more deep dives like this? Hit follow, and I'll keep hunting the corners of the MCU so you don't have to. Until next time, thanks for watching, and keep asking the hard questions about the heroes you think you know.